All right, so we're going to start with ULF. ULF. Not sure how to pronounce that. Can AI replace SEO? At some point, probably, yeah. I don't think it will yet. It can do a lot of stuff that SEOs do, but there's still, in my opinion, requires kind of a strategy element that I think, right now is still very much done, I think, or should be done by humans. As you guys know, if you use a lot of AI chat and stuff like that, you use a lot of hallucinations and fabrications and things like that. And so I wouldn't trust it to fully automate it 100%. I would still want some sort of manual component. And right now, I think that that's where kind of the crossroads is, the intersection is between AI and humans is for SEO is really because so much can be automated now with AI that I still think it needs kind of management and control by a human to make sure that it doesn't go off the rails, basically. Okay. And say things that aren't true or make promises that it can't keep, write checks that its ass can't cash, that kind of stuff. All of that is, I think, important to have human moderation and kind of control over everything. So I don't know that eventually, maybe, but I still think that really to be effective, you should have some sort of human element in there that is managing it, making sure everything is running properly, is accurate, true, and then again, mixing strategy in with that as well. Do I think it can replace it entirely? Possibly, but not anytime in the very near future, anyways, in my opinion. Okay. Not with any kind of measurable value. As far as just straight technical SEO stuff, probably. But remember, SEO to be effective, you have to understand marketing, right? Marketing, copywriting, a little bit of everything in marketing, sales, copywriting, marketing, sales, all of that in order to be effective at it, right? Learning how to rank stuff is one thing, but having whatever you rank then convert a visitor into whatever conversion goal that you want them to take, that's a whole different ballgame. So it's a kind of, in my opinion, and I've said this recently on multiple webinars actually, I think where we need to evolve as local marketers, formerly local SEO professionals, but now I consider SEO is so broad now that it's really we are local marketing professionals where SEO is just one component of it. I truly believe that in order for us to stay relevant, we need to kind of get back to the traditional or the foundational like marketing principles of really understanding your buyer persona or different buyer personas, because usually there's going to be different types of buyer personas that would be interested in a company's products or services. So if you have a separate set of buyer or a different, you have the appropriate like buyer personas for whatever is kind of most typical or common in your industries, and then develop marketing specifically to speak to that audience segment. Um, and also remember, there's not only different buyer personas, right, which are the way that you communicate to them or pitch to them, et cetera, will be slightly different or may have some nuanced differences between how you communicate depending on which type of buyer persona it is. But then there's also different stages of the buying cycle, right? We typically think of things like, you know, the top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel, where somebody's looking for information at first, but they're not really sure that they have a problem that can be resolved. And middle of funnel is where now they know they have a problem. They know they're aware of some solutions that are out there, but they're not sure of which. Bottom of funnel would be kind of like now they know they got a problem. They know which solution they want. Now they're just looking for the best provider. But then there's also other kind of stages in the buying cycle afterwards. What happened post sale? What about customer retention? What about loyalty, right? Customer loyalty, like getting them to come back and buy more stuff, right? To be an advocate, to go out and then preach and basically promote your products or services or your clients' products or services to their friends and family, their contacts, anybody in their sphere of influence, et cetera. So there's all these different stages in the buying cycle too, pre-sale and post-sale. And so there's marketing language and copy messaging can be modified or customized for individual buyer personas, but then also for each stage in the buying cycle. There's something we're going to be doing a webinar in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I think it's in the next 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks. Adam can pop in if he knows the date, but we're going to be doing a webinar with this for this tool called what's a tool that one of our former colleagues and well, he's still a colleague, but kind of a former JV partner of Semantic Mastery Rob and his partner now are launching. I don't want to give the name of the tool out yet, but we're going to be doing a webinar about that tool, which is I think is phenomenal. It queries 63 large language models. You can start with just a very broad topic keyword or an entity or a topic, and you plug it into this tool. And it's a tool that does not just keyword. There's going to be multiple subscription levels. The basic subscription level is really a keyword tool or an entity analysis tool, so to speak, as far as um, what are all it's all based upon database, relational database, and how semantically close a supporting terms are to the seed term. So, like, in other words, how close are they with distance graph to, like, if they're immediately adjacent terms? There's tier one terms and tier two terms. So, in other words, you plug a seed term in and it will go out and query 63 language models, the 63 language models that are used the most often by most of the marketing platforms or platforms that we use, social media, Google, things, all of that, right? And so it then adds that, it submits that query or that term to the 63 models, and then it asks them to return what it understands like tier one and tier two, semantically related, or as far as like the distance graph. The the first tier terms are the terms that are immediately adjacent to the seed term. Tier two terms are those terms that are immediately adjacent to the tier one terms, but are two hops away from the seed term. And what that does is it queries all 63 language models, and then it shows you the frequency with which the related terms, tier one and tier two, or the related terms period, in this case, it's called the matrix, I believe, it will show how many of the 63 language models that related term appeared within. So in other words, I'm not going to show you guys yet because it'd be premature to show you guys, but it's a very, very powerful tool that starts with keyword research, basically. And then from there, there's another analysis tool or whatever that then kind of breaks it down and this shows you like kind of content structure. If you were going to be developing content using those terms, that shows are especially when you're talking about the tier one and tier two terms, like the terms that are most closely related to that seed term and that were repeated or uh, referenced by the 63 language models the most. So like any of them that have, let's say out of 63 language models, there's a particular term that is related to the seed query that was shown in 55 of 63 language models. Well, now you know that is a highly related term. So that's something that you should use within your content and blah, blah, blah. But then you can go in and look at the analysis, which is the next kind of function, or one of the functions, I should say. And it will break down those tier one terms with the tier two terms and kind of show a hierarchy based upon the parameters that you set as to like, okay, if you're going to optimize a piece of content for this tier one term, here are the tier two related terms that you should have within headings or subheadings of that page, if that makes sense. So all of that is very similar to keyword stuff, but it's done the methodology for how it's done is different. Okay. And I think it's very powerful. But to get back to the original question, which was about kind of more about marketing and everything, that's the other options of that, or the other functionality of that tool goes very deep into developing buyer personas and then finding different buyer personas. In an example, I was doing a demo of this tool in the mastermind. Mastermind has its benefits, guys. And you know, will demo stuff in the mastermind weeks before we'll do an actual public webinar about it. And so I was demoing this in the mastermind a couple of weeks ago, and I was showing, for example, I just put in tree care or tree service or whatever. And then I was just showing that, like, for example, where it shows, like, I think it's called Pathways is the name of the tool, but Pathways shows like different market segments or buyer segments for that industry, right? And so in my case, I put tree care or tree service, whatever it was. And in there, it showed some very interesting things. And I talked one of the newsletters that we're going to be publishing in the next week or two is going to be talking about this specifically. But it showed in there, like, for example, homeowners associations. So like in property managers, right? So for tree services, imagine, you know, creating a targeted marketing campaign to reach out to and contact homeowners associations and property management companies, right? Think about that. Property management companies that deal in either big residential developments and manage the grounds and all that stuff, right? And the properties do, rentals and maintenance and all that kind of stuff, or big shopping centers and commercial areas and things like that. They all have groundskeeping work that needs to be done, trees that need to be trimmed, things like that. So homeowners associations, for neighborhoods, residential developments, things like that. Again, typically they are going to have like their recommended providers list for homeowners in their communities. Will contact a HOA office and ask like, "Hey, who do you recommend for pool cleaning or tree trimming or, fence building or stuff like that?" And so contacting and doing a direct a direct response marketing campaign. This is what I was getting at with this comment, guys, which is getting back to traditional and direct response marketing tactics and principles. And we can use AI now to help us very quickly build out these different buyer persona segments for a particular industry, then develop all the content for a specific buyer persona, but then for each different cycle stage within the sales cycle. Do you get it? And so now we're getting very, very targeted with our messaging that is will if done right, will convert much higher than just generic content that is ranked in search, right? In Google search, we're typically, to get back, remember, can AI replace SEO? That was the original question. In search, we've typically really done whatever we could to rank a page. And conversion rate optimization, right, or conversion optimization or whatever is typically something that we do as kind of a secondary thing, unless we're driving paid traffic to. And then conversion rate optimization is something you prioritize. But in SEO, a lot of the times, at least in my experience in local SEO, is that most local SEOs are just trying to get shit ranked. It's, conversion rate optimization can be damned initially. It's about getting it ranked first. And then once it's ranked, then they start working on trying to optimize for conversions, et cetera. But this takes that away, because instead of trying to it makes it better, because then you can do direct response marketing, meaning cold email, social media outreach, direct mail, physical mail. Guys, this takes the digital component away from it. It doesn't mean that you can't still also optimize for all those too. But I'm saying with tools like what we're going to be demoing and sharing with you guys in a webinar in a couple of weeks, this tool makes it so much easier to very quickly develop these buyer personas and content for each of the different, stages within the buying cycle for each buyer persona, so that then you can start creating, again, cold email campaigns, social media outreach campaigns, advertising campaigns for like, YouTube ads and things like that. Direct mail, like I said, physical mail is still valuable. In fact, I think it actually converts better now than a lot of digital marketing stuff does, because it's not used as nearly as much. So it's not a saturated market anymore. And so we can use AI then to overcome SEO or replace the need for SEO, if that makes sense. I'm not saying you shouldn't also do SEO, but what I'm saying is I think as Google loses market share, and it's not to just one other competitor, like in other words, there's not one singular large language model or chat, AI chat or anything that is taking the bulk of the market share, right? I mean, I guess Perplexity is one of the ones that is taking more away from search, I guess, for local than anything else. But there are so many options available now that Google is losing market share, but it's being distributed. That market share that it's losing is being lost across multiple other platforms instead of like just one other. So what I think we should be doing in order to stay relevant is learning how to get back to foundational elements of what is direct response marketing principles, which is, again, speaking directly to a particular buyer with specific messaging that elicits a direct response. That's hence the name, direct response marketing. And so I think AI can help us to do all of that now in a much faster way, because we now have access to all the data that AI has access to, right? And so instead of trial and erroring, like in direct response marketing, you might have, previous to AI, you would have, databases or, books and things like that from that would kind of say like, hey, we've done testing in this industry, and these are the types of creatives that tend to perform or convert best, and these are the types of messaging and all that. But now we have large language models where like all the data on the web is at our fingertips, and we can query with prompts or tools like what we're going to be demoing that does all the querying and all the prompting automatically. All you do is put a keyword in or a topic in and hit go, and then work that keyword or that topic through that tool, and it automatically creates all of this resources for you. And now you can create all these targeted marketing campaigns that aren't necessarily digital marketing reliant. Like in other words, again, there's a number of ways you can use that data to then target a specific segment within an audience. So I gave you guys one, or that was kind of very similar: HOAs and property management groups. Another one that came out that was introduced to me that I had seen before, but I never really took the time to think through it. And I've seen these in Search Console, was for some of my tree service contractor clients that are in an area that have golf courses. Oftentimes in Search Console, I will see like tree maintenance, uh, tree tree care for golf courses, tree maintenance for golf courses, or golf course tree maintenance, things like that. So you see like in Search Console where that is a query that around golf courses, like golf course property maintenance managers and things like that, right? You think about like the cost. I just again, it's just another example of how this tool introduced to me like a whole nother subsegment of that we could be reaching out to for tree contractors that are in areas that have golf courses. Remember, golf courses and country clubs spend a shit ton of money on making sure that their properties are kept nice and look beautiful, right? And so because of that, again, that would be a great opportunity to do a targeted outreach for a tree contractor to golf courses and property maintenance managers for golf courses, et cetera, and other parks and things like that, right? So I'm just giving you guys some examples of, can AI replace SEO? I don't think entirely, but I think it can replace a lot of the stuff that we've done in SEO to then allow us to focus on higher level like strategy and things like that, right? And I think that's where we're like, in my opinion, I think that's really what we should be kind of moving towards, is really learning how to use AI to market more effectively to the customers of the industries that we provide marketing services to, right? And because we're spreading out now across so many different channels, marketing channels, it's no longer just Google, right? Or in my industry, I almost focused entirely on Google because social media wasn't a good way to generate tree service leads. At least in my experience, it wasn't. But now, again, because people are across different large language models and all these different social media platforms and not even using search as much, we want to try to get our companies referenced and mentioned across all those different platforms, which means, and we talked about this in previous weeks on Hump Day Hangouts, publishing a shit ton of branded content that's always tying the company, the products or services, and the locations that the products or services that the company provides and the locations in which it provides them. Publishing enough content across multiple platforms, because different language models ingest content from different platforms, and you never know where the consumer is, which platforms the consumer is using. So it's best to try to establish a presence across as many as possible. How do you do that? Publish more content, not directly from the money site, because then that can create competing pages and on-page optimization, like again, redundancy, competing pages, and all of that, which can lower the performance of the actual website. But publishing content on branded external blogs, external branded blogs like Google Sites, Blogger, Weebly, Tumblr, Strikingly, any of those, it doesn't matter. Medium, anything at all, creating a bunch of branded blogs that are connected to the property, the campaign, the client, the business, but then publishing content across all of those. And now if you've got different buyer personas and you've got content that's developed to speak directly to them, now you've got all these opportunities to publish a ton of content across multiple platforms so that you can speak directly to a particular buyer when they're looking for the products or services that company provides. And it's more likely that the chat apps, the AI chats, are going to uh, uh, you know, mention or provide the company if somebody was to query it. Like in a golf course area, like who's the best tree service contractor for tree care contractor for golf courses? Well, if there's even in an area where there's golf courses, there might be 25, 30 tree service contractors. But if none of those tree service contractors have any content, published specifically, intentionally published a bunch of content out there about golf course tree maintenance, then, and there's only one, your client, where you've published that content, then the chats are going to automatically bring that up. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, I think it's best to learn how to kind of identify market segments, develop content specifically for them, and then now you've got all these platforms that you can publish content to that will not compete with the main website. In fact, it actually kind of helps to improve it because you're publishing supporting content on these external branded blogs that typically don't have a lot of authority. But by publishing content to them, it helps to build the topical authority, which would make links from them back to the main website and maybe Google Map embeds and things like that more valuable because now those platforms, the blogs, external blogs, are more thoroughly optimized with relevant content. And it also creates the opportunity or presents the opportunity for more potential for the large language models to then serve the client's name, company name up when somebody is querying about the products or services in a particular area when that company has been publishing content about it. And especially with different content published for different types of buyer personas in different stages of the sales cycle, then there's enough of it out there that it can be very, like the results or the answers that the AI give can be very, very targeted and specific to what the searcher, the AI chat user was searching for. Do you understand? So that's kind of my take on how we should be evolving with today's AI and trying to move away from strictly SEO. I was watching a video on YouTube a couple of days ago, and the guy said, I can't remember the name of him, but he said SEO, we know it as search engine optimization, but SEO is should be really kind of that acronym should now be search everywhere optimization. I can't remember the guy who said that, but it was on YouTube and I thought it was a pretty interesting statement. So instead of search engine optimization, SEO should be search everywhere optimization. And I tend to agree now. Okay. Anyways, and I spent a lot of time on that question because I think it's a great question. It's very, very broad, but I've been doing a lot of thinking about this lately. And I think getting away from just the tactics of trying to rank stuff in Google, like that is dying quickly, very quickly. So we have to evolve or else we're going to be left in the dust. Right.